everybody, it's AJ here of the Mighty Glue Stick. How's it going? So I've talked about this, and it's time to get going with the a monsterology of the Abyss. It's a very big topic, and normally I like to approach things in an orderly fashion, but in regards to the Abyss, the domain of chaotic evil, I'm just going to jump in anywhere I like. So first of all, there's some misconceptions about what the Abyss is, and also with people who have just started out the game, they see no difference between demons and devils, and it takes a while for it to sink in that they're distinctly different from each other within the D&D universe. First of all, it's said that the Abyss has 666 layers. This is basically because the word Abyss is used in the Bible, and it's derived from the Greek word, which is it's the Latin word, which is a translation of the Greek word abyssos, which basically means deep, infinitely deep ocean. So that's your clue that the abyss is infinitely deep. It's a depth, as in you sink into it and there's no coming back. It's dark and terrible. While it's said that there's 666 layers and they have numbers, they're basically... Imagine that I take a deck of playing cards, I shuffle them, I pull out one, say the Queen of Clubs, and I write a number on it, 1. And then I pull out another card and write a number there. So as I'm discovering them, I'm writing down the numbers. So the numbers vary between various accounts. And when I've stacked them all these cards back on top of each other, then in no particular order. And it has no relation to the underlying order of the planes themselves, how they connect together. So while you could say that the first layer of the Abyss, Pazunia, the home of Pazuzu, otherwise known as the Palace of 1001 Closets, or the Plane of Infinite Portals, which consists of the bubbling up of the Blood River, formerly known as the River Styx, which flows through the evil and throughout the multiverse of other planes, and the large sinkholes which connect it to other planes of existence within the Abyss, or the iron fortresses dotting the landscape which protect the physical forms of astrally travelling demon princes. It's just one amongst an infinite amount of planes, and it's not necessarily the first, it's just one of the best known, possibly one of the more accessible, because of all those portals leading to and from. So while you could say then that the second layer, the Driller's Hives, which is an air-dominant realm of Tharzax, the Chattering Prince, and his floating fortresses hives, that's not necessarily the most closely connected realm to Pazunia, or the fact that it's listed as the second plane of the Abyss is just a random... it was just discovered second, or it's known second best. So it goes on and on and on. And all of these realms, there's many hundreds which have been discovered or described, are in no particular order in their own subjective reality. In fact, I would say that since the realm of the Abyss is so chaotic, their order would change on a regular basis anyway, with some even fading out of existence as though forgotten. Some may bubble in or split into additional pairs. There's some theories that the Abyss is actually alive. It's a living creation of chaos that seeks to spread itself and tear apart the universe around it, and that the demons which are generated by the Abyss and constantly spawn from it are simply it's basically viral bodies which are out to destroy the universe or turn it all back into the elemental chaos, a whirling maelstrom of screaming spirit matter and energy constantly predating and tearing itself apart in a predatory fashion. That's the universe that the demons are seeking to create, and any sort of order or law that they encounter infuriates them and enrages them to the point where they need to basically smash and destroy everything. They're not happy until every world is destroyed. The underlying fabric of space is disrupted, and everything is just a churning maelstrom of black holes, supernovae, and screaming spirits hurtling through the void with no sense of past, present, or future. Just a constant now of screaming chaos. That's what they're after. That's basically what the Abyss is all about. And the heart of the Abyss is a point of complete chaos. So if there is a lowest plane or a center of the abyss, or the lowest possible point or an origin space of the abyss. It's a realm that nothing can exist in any sort of cohesive fashion. So I can't really see how that could ever be destroyed, possibly contained somehow. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's up to you how you want to sort of orient. If you do have an end goal of your campaign that the abyss is somehow conquered or destroyed, sure. But for me, it's an eternal problem. It's a blight. It's a flaw in the cosmos that the deities can't do anything about. So, who lives in the abyss? What are demons? How are they different from devils? Well, I've described this not so long ago to somebody else who was asking me what the difference between demons and devils is. I would suggest going and having a look at the Cosmology of the Nine Hells to give you one of the origin stories. But basically, back in the beginning, the universe was divided up into a war between chaos and law. There wasn't such a strict definition between good and evil, because these were beings which just existed. They didn't turn the spotlight on themselves so much, or their behavior. So a bunch of divine beings, you could call them angels, but they were gods and superhuman, amazing things in their own right, were at war with chaos and seeking to instill law on the universe and constrain and restrict them, and keep them at bay. And at the same time the universe was basically being built, they were hammering out the details and creating rules and regulations for the way that everything physically interacts with itself. And so there's this constant warfare between the forces of law and the forces of chaos. And in the process of this brutal battle, which became known eventually as the Blood War, the divine beings which were waging this warfare had to turn to more and more extreme measures in order to keep everything contained. And as chaos basically had no restrictions on what it would do, it became extremely hard. And they had to turn to brutal measures, and it twisted them so that they became creatures of lawful evil. And this is basically the origin of the devils. So the devils, eventually they weren't welcome back in heaven, or in the divine domains. And so, facing a banishment, they said, look, well, we need the tools with which to keep these things at bay, similar to Boromir's talk about Gondor is at the doorstep of Mordor, and it's by our lives that we keep you safe. The devils have a similar sort of task. It is by their constant warfare that the universe has a sense of order. And they have an arrangement that in order to do this, they need to have divine power. And since they are beings of evil that basically can't generate worship, they need to have a source of souls. And so the gods have said, okay, any mortals that basically don't abide by our rules get punished. And by punished, we mean we hand them over to you. And you can then use their soul energy, their ability to create the universe around them, as you see fit. And so the devil said, great. And then they turned and over the years have sought to twist and cajole and trick mortals into breaking divine laws so that they basically condemn themselves. This is why they are the great tempters and deceivers. So in order to do this, they use all sorts of different methods of tricking and creating contracts and things like that. As long as these mortal souls agree and abide by a contract, they've got them because it's lawful and they have domain over law. And then once they have this, these mortals under their sway, they can use that power to continue the fight against chaos. But of course, since this is gathering them power, they perpetuated this warfare with chaos probably far longer than they really should have. So it basically became an endless stalemate, and this conflict raged across the cosmos through time and space for millions of years. And so therein lies the main difference. So devils are bound by law, so they have a strict hierarchy, and you can make contracts and arrangements with them which they will abide by. It's in their very nature. They can't break their word, they can't break a contract. It's like us basically refusing to breathe or eat. They can't do it. Demons, on the other hand, are the antithesis of that. They exist to break contracts, to lie, to destroy. They will not be bound. They will not be contained. And to even attempt to do so will drive them to further and further acts of ruin. Basically, they're the Hulk. The more you try and control them, the worse they get. And probably the best thing you can do to contain a demon is just to create a artificial reality of order and set them loose in it to constantly destroy it. And that they're basically happy in that case. They keep them distracted for eons. So that you can contain them and lock them away or possibly draw on some of their power. But it's a twisted, tainted power that doesn't abide by rules and regulations, and it's very, very hard to control. So wizards and things like that are probably far more happy to summon up a devil than they ever would be to summon a demon, because summoning demons is inherently extremely dangerous. Not only that, but shortly after you summon one of those things to the mortal realm, you're going to have to confront devils, which are there to deal with it, because you've just unleashed another battlefront, and it could end up tearing apart your entire world. It could destroy your reality. So, it's not necessarily angels you're going to face. They've got other things to concern themselves with. But you unleash demons somewhere, and it gets out of control, which it's bound to do so, and the next thing you have to deal with is devils. But so you may even be happy to see them there until essentially they won't do anything. They won't lift a finger to save you until you've signed a contract and your soul is theirs. That's the way it works. Anyway, so there's infinite numbers of layers of the Abyss, and there's all sorts of demon lords that live there. I've covered a few of them in various other, I've mentioned a few of them in other videos. Demogorgon and Grazz't and Orcus, Fraz-Blue, Baphomet, Yenogu, Duiblex, Melkothet, Pazuzu, Koschiki, Dagon, the Pale Knight, Obox Ob, Zugtmoy, and Sessinek, who I mentioned in the Lizardman video. But there's many, many others, Vatbrak and various others. There's chaotic evil deities that exist within the Abyss, but it's difficult to live there because they're constantly assailed by demons, of course, who are trying to tear apart even their rudimentary order, and even their attempt to exert dominance on the place is considered a restriction, and the demons constantly fight against it. So in the case of Loth, for instance, who existed on one of the planes of the Abyss, I think it was the 66th discovered layer of the Abyss, her demon web pits, she actually relocated to another sub-plane that she created herself, another reality. And now that layer, the 66th, is a barren wasteland, devoid of all light and life, completely empty, aside from a plane of rock. There's even worse planes of existence within the Abyss, such as the 665th discovered layer of the Abyss, which is a void that you fall through, constantly plummeting until the wind flays the flesh from your bones, and you perish. And eventually the bones wear away to a fine dust which disperses into the eternal night. So there's terrible planes of the Abyss, and there's every kind of torment really is inflicted upon them. Anybody who goes through these, basically the constant of the Abyss is that it's chaotic, so you're not sure what you're going to find, and it's evil, so it's going to try and hurt you. Whatever plane you're on, no matter how paradise-like it looks on the surface, it's got some aspect which is designed to destroy you. So this could be a physical destruction, this could be madness, it could be the environment is corruptive, so you land in a fungal swamp, constantly infected by viruses and fungal spores which eat you alive, and are constantly predating on each other. You could travel to something that seems like reality where everyone is turned against you and you run for your life as a hated traitor. where even your loved ones turn into your worst enemies, so that you suffer a madness of loneliness and frustration. You could fall into one of the elemental-dominated planes, such as the second, the Driller's Hives. There's planes of fire. There's planes where there's constant supernovae and black holes, which create searing, blinding light, and planes of burning rock, which are constantly traveling into maws of destruction. So you're constantly running for your life through landslides, burning magma flows, pyroclastic firestorms, and searing light, which is threatening to burn and incenderize everything. There's planes of darkness and absolute freezing cold, where there's abysses of oceanic depths with no surface, and just that plunge forever into darkness and increasing cold and pressure, where leviathan creatures of titanic proportions lurk, seeking to tear apart anything that drifts into their realm. It's just an infinite variety. And within that you have the Tenari, the demons, and the Oberonth, and the Mains, who are the mortal souls who've been condemned to the abyss. So chaotic, evil individuals who have sought nothing but destruction throughout their lives, who rage against any form of sanity. Basically, these are the individuals who are going to go to the abyss if they haven't sworn their souls to some other form of chaotic evil deity and abided by whatever rules and regulations that deity has. If they are in fact unclaimed, then that's where they go. The rest of the universe has no use for them. Their madness and chaos, their destruction and evil, their predatory nature has earmarked them for this plane. And the Mains they manifest as slavering mounds of flesh. They are pale skinned, they have sharp teeth and claws, and their bodies are infested with maggots which constantly eat through their flesh. So their insides are crawling with infestation. And they survive for an infinite amount of time until they're promoted to a greater form, that of a demon. They typically pool around in great big spawning ponds, swampy pits where they tear and rip at each other. But those who are extremely clever, the lucky ones that survive for millennia, become eventually demon lords. And Orcus is one such individual. He was once a mortal being of the blackest heart, an evil individual, hell-bent on destruction and death, and a lover of destruction who found himself dead and transformed into a Main, and lived through hundreds, if not thousands of years of absolute abject horror, to eventually claw his way to the top, become a demon, and then amass destructive power until he became the lord of the undead, the demon lord of an undead plane, and has reigned ever since. So there's all sorts. The demons themselves come in an infinite variety. The selection that you have in the monster manual is just a drop of the bucket. It's like a few selections of a massive assortment. And while it seems like they have a similar hierarchy to that of the devils, they really don't. Basically, it's the strongest are in charge, and the weaker are constantly beaten down and ordered to follow the directions of those who are stronger than them. But otherwise, they'd get destroyed. So the difference between the armies of the Batizu when they field into combat, and the armies of the Abyss when the demons take the field, and the Tenari come screaming out in a hoarding mass with massive beasts striding through and even trotting on smaller demons that are ripping and tearing at everything in their path, as opposed to the devils who are marching forward in orderly ranks of platoons, squadrons, and brigades and battalions and divisions, with leaders who are ordering siege engines and flying hosts of other devils to blast the battlefield and create firewalls of burning sulphurous flame, while the demons basically charge straight through it in blistering explosions of mottled flesh and blaring war horns and screaming shouts and blood and muck and seething horrors that they are unleashing upon the battlefield. Every kind of weapon they can find, any form of destruction that they can lay in front of them, nothing is too excessive. Since their ultimate goal is the destruction of reality itself, it's a warfare that no mortal really has any comparison to. It's complete war. It's a war of fundamental reality that has been waging for millions of years. So, yeah, they really are a disorganized mob of screaming, raging berserkers. And while they can appear to be calm at times, really it's the destruction that their power can unleash any moment, and the fact that they're working towards a goal of destruction, that they may occasionally seem satisfied. So when you're dealing with some great big pit fiend lord of a demonic lord, they may be getting closer to you or finding ways of breaking through their restraints that they're under. But when they walk upon reality unchecked and unrestrained, they warp and twist everything. I mean, Yenogu walked across the mortal realm for a day or so before he was eventually removed, but his existence in the mortal realm created the blight of the gnolls and various other monsters, and he's constantly warping and twisting the Minotaur race, which is something I haven't covered yet, but it's a curse that they've had to deal with through their entire existence, and gnolls wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for the curse of Yenogu. So, yeah, their merest touch can create things like the curse of vampirism or werewolves, lycanthropy, that sort of thing. So they unleash terrible blights and plagues which warp and twist reality itself, and become legacies of destruction which carry on for thousands of years and are extremely difficult to deal with. Their very touch and their very existence is a taint and a blight on reality. So, yeah, keeping demons contained is really the entire point, and any wizard who summons them willingly or willfully is the enemy of reality. So, yeah, they're probably viewed as insane. Those who summon devils, probably not really well respected either, but at least you can deal with a devil. At least you can apply law and hierarchy and make contracts and deals that they abide by. Whereas demons, on the other hand, no, there's no containing them. So yeah, there's various demon lords and things which I might cover in coming videos. I make no promises, but I will cover the various Tanari that are listed in the book and the monster manual. And I'll talk about the occasional realm of the Abyss, one of the many, many layers that have existed through all of the editions of the game, and the various flora and fauna of them, because it's infinitely fascinating. I might even create a few and just talk at random about some layer of the Abyss that you could throw at your players. Why not? So that's about it. If you've got any questions or comments down below about specific aspects of the Abyss, let me know. It will give me some direction where to start talking about it. Otherwise, I'll get started on videos on the various demons in a similar way that I talked about the various devils, starting with the weakest and working my way up. I still haven't finished talking about the greater devils as well, and devil lords, princes. So I'll carry on talking about them too. Thanks for listening, everybody. I hope your weekend's going well. I'll talk to you again soon.